You're listening to 94.4 FM, the Friday Sports Show. The host, Jimmy Petruzzi, from New South Wales and around the world. Today we have a fascinating guest, TV journalist and women's health advocate, Cherry Healey, who's going to give us an insight into taking a time out. Every now and again we all need a time out, that's for sure. Cheryl, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Lovely to be here, Jimmy. Thank you for having me.
So Cheryl, tell us a bit more about the importance of me time. You know, it's ensuring that we spend time on self-care.
Well, self-care and me time are one of those phrases where a lot of people roll their eyes, but really what they mean is looking after yourself. It's really, really important. So P&O Cruises did some research and found that 82% of people think that self-care and looking after yourself is really, really important. But actually, 1 in 5 people say they're spending just half an hour a week looking after themselves. And one of the interesting things that came out of the research is people put themselves right down at the bottom of the pecking order. So above is pretty much everything else. Domestic chores, your friends, your family, making sure everyone else is okay. And it includes your boss. So your boss, how your boss is and whether they've got everything they need is far above whether you're okay. And the truth of it is that not looking after yourself doesn't really benefit anyone. You know, you're not as patient, you're not functioning as well, you're not processing information as well. So looking after yourself isn't important just so that you're happier, you're enjoying your life, but it also benefits everyone around you. So it is important to think about how you are and whether you're sleeping well, are you looking after your body, your mind, your soul. All of those things are important.
No, absolutely. And I mean, why do you think that we tend to put people before ourselves, Cheryl? I mean, I'm sure you're sort of familiar with that, but certainly if I reflect on sort of what I do during the week, I think a lot of people tend to put other people before themselves and not stop and take a break. And why do you think that is?
Because people are lovely and people care and people have very carefully created their life. So they've chosen their partner, they've had kids, they've got a job, they want to look after where they live. People are conscientious and they want to make sure that their surrounding life is functioning and is great. But because life is busy, there's a lot going on, people forget that in fact looking after themselves is important. I think there's a misconception that looking after yourself is selfish. So I'm definitely not, I'm not a martyr. I look after, I mean, it would be ridiculous if I was helping people to feel better about themselves and I didn't do it myself. But I really, really do look after myself. So at the weekends, I will always try and carve out an afternoon or a morning where I can step away and I can take myself out for lunch or for coffee. I can go to an exercise class. I can have a long shower at the gym, or I can go for a lovely walk by the river. I really do try and look after myself. But it's also important to put in time during the week cumulatively so that you're never wrung out and you're never, snapping at everyone around you. So 10 minutes in the morning, getting up a little bit earlier so I can sit in the kitchen quietly before everyone gets up. And I will journal, or I will read, or I will do deep breaths or listen to calming music. And the same in the evening, I will write in my journal before I go to sleep 3 things I'm really grateful for. And what that does is it means that you can drift off to sleep with your brain processing positive things. So our brain's like a computer and it processes what's happened during the day. And quite often it will focus on the stressful and difficult things because, it wants to not recreate that the next day. Like if you go to a forest and you get jumped on by a saber-toothed tiger, during the night your brain will say, well, that's not a safe forest. Problem is that obviously we don't have any tigers around the corner, most of us. So we need to trick our subconscious into feeling calm. And one of the best ways to calm our nervous system down and tell our brain that we're safe is to write 3 things we're really grateful for. And that encourages better sleep. And it's also more likely that you're going to wake up the next day feeling positive about your life and about the day. So it's a really great, cheap trick that you can do every single day.
No, absolutely, and I've do my gratitude list in the evening, Cheryl, in the morning as well, and go for my walk. So, none of what you say resonates. Absolutely. So a lot of what you say sort of resonates with me. That's for sure. And like you say, there's sort of practical tips that anyone can sort of do, and that's for sure. And I mean, why do you think sort of generally? I know this is probably anecdotal, not the same for every sort of house, but generally, like home life seems to be more pressured. I don't know if it was more pressured in years gone by, but certainly. These days there's a little bit of extra pressure, really, to be fair. Is it?
Yes, yeah. And I think it's partly real, and I think it's partly imagined. Now, we used to bring up our families in a village. We'd have people around you that would help with kids, help with pickups, help with drop-offs. Bring you food if you need it. And we just don't really have that anymore. We live quite isolated social lives. We do the kids and the work and the domestic stuff, everything. We do everything. So we are genuinely really busy, but there's also an addiction to the sense of feeling busy. And so instead of taking the time that we do have to get really calm, to calm our nervous system, often we scroll on our phones, and what that does is that it takes this adrenaline and this sense of always being on and doing stuff, and it continues it into our downtime, because our phone, if you're scrolling on social media, if you're researching stuff, your brain isn't being given the opportunity to calm down, because we're being hit with dopamine, and also you feel anxious. You look at the news, you look at a party you haven't been invited to, you look at someone on Instagram driving an amazing car, and we feel busy because we don't give our brains and our body the time to calm down. So it's really important that every single day, you find a way at the end of the day to calm your nervous system. And not lying on the sofa on your phone. I do it, I love it, I'm so addicted to my phone, but it is not giving me a happier life. It's not encouraging a happier life.
No, absolutely. I think that's important to have that time out. And in terms of the sort of work-life balance, I mean, obviously different people find different ways to get the work-life balance. Like you mentioned before, I'm sort of really big on journaling and planning the week and making sure that the activity schedule, I suppose that's not for everybody, but what are your thoughts on ensuring a work-life balance for people listening?
I think it's when you do get that downtime to make really good use of it. So I would see wellness and self-care almost like something to be researched and something to be interested in, because you can do all these little hacks during your day that make a big difference. So let's say you're in the bath. Instead of getting through the bath quickly or showering quickly, take a moment to do this thing called a box breath. What that is you imagine a box. So take a big breath in and hold it for 2 seconds, or hold it for 4 if you can. Imagine a line running across the top of the box. Now imagine the line running down the side of the box, and then you breathe that breath out. And then imagine a line running along the bottom of the box. Take another big breath in and hold it for 2. And then imagine it running up the other side of the box and breathe out for 2. And what that does is that not only fills your body full of oxygen, and that will calm you down, but it will also take you out of your brain. So if you're worried about something, if you're anxious about something, if you're overthinking something, it will really help. So something like that, all those little tips and tricks really add to your sense of feeling happy. So I'm going to be doing some wellness workshops on the P&O cruises next year, and I'm going to be bringing everything I've learned working in the wellness space to those workshops. So if your listeners are interested in this kind of thing, they can book onto one of these trips and they can come and hang out with me, come on holiday with me, and we're going to be talking about sleep, which is the foundation of our health. I mean, I'm obsessed with sleep. You get good sleep, you have a good day, mainly. I mean, it makes a massive difference. So we're going to be talking about how to get great sleep. We're going to be talking about what food to eat, when to eat it. We're going to be talking about exercise. We're going to be talking about skincare. We're going to be talking about makeup. These are absolutely not just for women. These are for everyone. We're going to be talking about aromatherapy, visualization, meditation, how to perform better at work using wellness. we're going to be talking about how to live the best life you can possibly live. And all of these tips and tricks are going to be affordable, practical, and hopefully people will leave that trip feeling the most refreshed and revived they've ever felt.
Absolutely, and for sure. And I mean, you mentioned there the sort of the breathing technique. Sure, that's really interesting. I sort of like do the breathing techniques myself. I do the 4-7-8, 4-6 as well, and it depends. Really. But so there's other sort of practical tips as well that you can sort of share to listeners as well. Like you mentioned there, sort of finding time to get out there. And I find for me that there's a lake near where I live, and when I'm sort of working from home, or even when I get home from work, I sort of make sure I go for like a walk around a couple of times, and I just feel the stress level just drop completely to be in that moment. But is there any sort of things that you can maybe share for our listeners, that any tips they can sort of maybe take into consideration if they want to sort of try and improve well-being?
Absolutely, Jimmy. I love that you take a lovely walk around the lake. I think it sounds like you've built some really lovely things into your life that help keep you calm and happy. So one of the things I think is wonderful is smell. So smell is one of the quickest ways to bring you into the present. And there's a couple of aromatherapy oils. It's not too expensive. They last for ages. So try sandalwood and frankincense. Those are two of the most calming scents. You can mix them together or use them individually, depending on your preference. You just rub them on your wrist, cup your nose and your mouth in your hands, take a really big breath in. And actually, Jimmy, you mentioned the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So you breathe through your nose for a count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 7, and then exhale for a count of 8. That little trick with the frankincense or sandalwood will bring you into the moment. It will calm your nervous system, calm your brain, and make you feel great. Now, if you do that before bed, and if you write a journal with 3 things you're grateful for, I promise you'll have such a fantastic night's sleep.
No, absolutely, and I think it's really interesting now. I mean, now I don't know how accurate they are, but you get these sort of gadgets that tell you how much you've slept as well, and I've got this sort of watch, and it gives you an idea. But it generally does correlate. I must admit, whether it's a psychological thing, when I do check it, and you do find that it does sort of, I suppose it's got some sort of accuracy. But now there are interesting things really have come up there. I'm sure there's sort of a lot more things, but in the short time we have, I think we've sort of, definitely sort of gone into some sort of detail as well. Is there any sort of, like you mentioned there, where people can get in touch and know more? But is there any specific information you could share for our listeners, Cheryl? They want to know more about your work, more about the research, more about what they can sort of do as well to improve.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I talk about these things a lot on my Instagram, and the link to the workshops is on my Instagram in my bio. So you can find out through that. You can go onto P&O Cruise website, and there's some really interesting wellness information there, and also links to the cruises that I'm going to be on. So come and say hi. Come and hang out with me.
No, brilliant, absolutely. So I want to thank you for coming on board the show. It's been really interesting and informative. TV journalist, women's health advocate, Cherry Healey, very kind enough to join us on the show and share some practical tips and suggestions about how we can enhance our well-being on 94.5 FM, the Friday Sports Show. Host, Jimmy Petruzzi. Thank you.